14 rare PlayStation 2 horror games that are beyond brilliant and deserve revival. When Sony first came up with the PlayStation, it was a phenomenal success, and they captured the markets effortlessly. The PlayStation 2 was a fine addition to the legacy, and it featured high-end graphics that were appreciated by the fans. In many ways, PlayStation 2 was a clear improvement from the first, and it enjoyed record sales figures that are still one of the highest. There are over 1,500 games that are compatible with the console, and many of these games are somewhat tough to find. There are many others that are criminally underrated and never got the attention that they deserve, from dozens of classics to stealth adventures, RPGs, and various others. The games offered a lot of diversity. PS2 also featured some of the finest horror games, many of which got lost in the sands of time. In this video, we will take a look at some of these underrated horror classics from one of the best gaming consoles ever made. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
You are strongly fated today. You see, you are destined to die.
What?
Shadow of Memories, 2002. This mystery adventure game was developed by Konami, and it was released for PS2, Xbox, and Microsoft Windows. The game is premised in a German town called Lebensbaum, and it starts off with a young man being stabbed to death. He is then resurrected by a djinn and is sent back in time so that he can get the opportunity to prevent his death. He must find a way to explore the surroundings and identify his killer so that he can figure out a way to not get killed this time around. Soon, you will find out a lot more to the young man's story than what meets the eye. The concept might make it seem like a typical action-packed adventure game, but the actual gameplay is very different. It is more about solving a mystery, walking around and talking to people for clues. There are some action sequences, but your controls mainly focus on the exploration part. The mysterious fictional town is eerily empty, and there are very few people wandering around. One of the hardest missions in this game is the very first one, and everything about the gameplay, from the narrative to the graphics, will leave you impressed. Today, the game might seem outdated, but back then, it held a special place in our hearts, and it was a fun game to play. Darkwatch, 2005. This first-person shooter was developed by High Moon Studios and published by Capcom. The unique horror western setting appealed to the fans, and the story was quite an exciting one. It was focused around a wanted outlaw named Jericho Cross, who was employed in vampire hunting by an organization called Darkwatch. However, as he tried to take down Darkwatch's biggest enemy, he slowly started to turn into a vampire himself. The gameplay focuses on his struggle to balance his humanity with his dark side, and there are enough twists and turns in the story to blow your mind. For those of you who have a taste for an intense shooter experience, Darkwatch will not disappoint you. It is a refreshing concept with excellent presentation, and the smooth gameplay only makes the experience better. You play as the protagonist, who is more of an anti-hero. He robs trains for a living until he gets cursed to turn into a vampire. The player gets to explore various weapons and also handle the character with his vampire powers kicked in. The fast-paced gameplay keeps you entertained, and there are some nail-biting boss fights that you must get through. You will see some extreme violence, but nothing out of the league. The only complaint we have is about the pedestrian multiplayer variant, because this game kicks ass in every other department. If you haven't played this already, this is a must-try for all the enthusiastic gamers out there. Fatal Frame 2, Crimson Butterfly. This survival horror game was developed and published by Tecmo, and the narrative is set in a fictional region in Japan. Miyo and Mayu are twin sisters who get lost in the forest and stumble upon a mysterious and abandoned town that local legends claimed had disappeared. They cannot find the path they took, and now they have no choice but to venture deep into this mysterious town. They soon find a special camera that can take pictures of things that aren't necessarily visible to the naked eye. As they explore the ruins further, they soon start to relive the nightmarish events that led to the region being shrouded in darkness. The original Fatal Frame game impressed the fans of the survival horror genre, and this game sticks to the success formula established by the first one. The innocent protagonists are up against some unappeased spirit, and there is a lot about Japanese folklore and rituals that make things interesting. You find the camera quite early, and this is an extremely handy tool in the middle of nowhere, with threats lurking all around. One of the major highlights of the game is fighting the disgruntled ghosts, and there are some very creepy enemies that you have to deal with. The gameplay tests your skill, and the graphics leave nothing to complain about. The perfect sound system also adds to the experience, and this wonderfully spooky game will be totally worth your time. Lifeline 2003. Lifeline was released by SCEI and Konami, and this game offered something truly unique that we hadn't experienced before. The player could use a microphone to speak to the on-screen characters and control the gameplay accordingly. You have to play as a young woman who attends a Christmas party in a space station. Soon, the facility is run over by strange monsters, and everyone around is slaughtered. There are only a few survivors, and you have to coordinate an escape plan and fight your way through the monsters running loose. This was the first ever voice-activated action horror game, and the uniqueness of the concept helped the sales figures big time. You have to guide the survivors using voice commands, and the unprecedented technology allowed voice recognition of over 5,000 words and all possible commands. However, things weren't always so smooth, and sometimes it was tough to make the characters follow your commands. Things could get frustrating, especially because the gameplay was no cakewalk. The battle system was solid, and the ambitious undertaking surely scored some points with things like graphics and the overall finesse. Thus, in spite of some technical issues, we rate this highly among the PS2 underrated gems. The Thing, 2002. This third-person shooter survival horror game was developed by Computer Artworks and co-published by Universal Interactive and Konami. This game served as a sequel to John Carpenter's classic movie by the same name, and the U.S. Special Forces team is sent out to the Antarctic outpost to check out the disturbance and the fate of the research team as shown in the movie. They soon find evidence that suggests the presence of a terrible extraterrestrial threat, and it becomes another struggle for survival as the virus threatens to spread to the rest of the world. Efforts to make this game a success were supported by John Carpenter himself, and he even had a cameo appearance. The developers lived up to the expectations of the fans, and the gameplay is a truly fine specimen of survival horror, where the main goal is to survive the onslaught. It is smartly designed, and there is a generous dose of action to keep the adrenaline flowing. You have to learn the art of managing a squad, and things can get frustrating at times. Soon, the body count starts to rise, and things get crazier as time passes. The game is so thoroughly engaging, and after you get used to the tricky control system, this is one neat game to try out. It might not be the best looking game around, but it certainly offers one of the best experiences. Fatal Frame, 2002. The game is set in the year 1986, and the story is set around the siblings Mickey and Mafayu. The latter goes to look for a missing novelist in a haunted mansion, and she disappears under mysterious circumstances. Now Miku sets out to find them, and her exploration of the haunted mansion reveals several clues that hint at the fate of those who entered there before. She is faced with several threats, such as hostile ghosts and the burden of a dark ritual that was conducted in the mansion once upon a time. She has a special camera that helps her fight the paranormal threats, and the survival horror game was one of the prized creations by Tecmo. This has to be one of the most well-executed and creepiest games around, and this compelling horror adventure will offer an unforgettable experience. The gruesome narrative gains speed with every passing minute, and playing this game can be a very disturbing and satisfying way to spend your evening. The brutally efficient game design makes it a smooth process, and there are some genuine scares along the way that will test the bravest of souls. The sounds and environments are truly terrifying, and this is one of the best games in the Fatal Frame franchise. If you haven't played this already, it is high time that you did. Forbidden Siren 2, 2006. This survival horror stealth game was developed by Japan Studios' Project Siren team, and it was published by Sony. What is the secret of the cursed island of Yamijima off the coast of Japan? Back in the day, the entire population of the island just vanished without any rational cause. And now, another group of shipwrecked people are stranded on this strange island. What is it about the resurrection of an ancient water deity mother? Well, there are many mysteries in this game, and thankfully the gameplay will eventually get you the answers. Just like the original Forbidden Siren game, this one also revolves around the idea of sight jacking, where you can see through the undead's eyes. The plot is creepy and gruesome at the same time, and the detailed timeline gives you a nice perspective of things going on around you. The ambiance is terrifying, but the environments could have looked better. The controls continue to be a bit clunky, and the graphics are not the best you have seen. However, you can put such flaws aside because the immersive gameplay will allow you to sink into the story. If you liked the first game in the series, there is no reason for you to not appreciate this one. Obscure, 2004. Leafmore High may look more like a normal school, but there are some dark and sinister things happening around the premises. 3 teenagers set out to look for their missing friend, and they end up locked inside the school at night. It is time to investigate the unexplained events, and they explore the school building to look for clues. Before long, they run into some infected students who are almost zombie-like and sensitive to light. The teenagers realize that there is a bigger conspiracy that is turning students into mutated monsters, and they must put an end to this menace. This survival horror game, developed by Hydravision Entertainment, was a huge hit among the young crowd because of the storyline. Obscure can be best described as a Resident Evil game playing out in a high school, and some old concepts never die out. The spooky theme bodes well for the story, and the tentacled monsters will remind you of Lovecraft's creations. The tense atmosphere with distant roars and eerie sounds will send shivers down your spine. Light can be quite a handy weapon, and you have to strategize well before you take down hordes of threats coming your way. Overall, it might look like a ripoff in many ways, but the game is still competent, and we have very fond memories of playing this. Alone in the Dark, 2008. This was the 5th game in the franchise, and it was released for Microsoft Windows, PS2, Xbox, and Wii. The story takes off with an amnesiac paranormal investigator who is reeling from the effects of an exorcism performed on him by a cult. Just as he is taken to be executed, an unseen force saves him, and he starts to wander around a mysterious building looking for a way out. He witnesses some horrifying deaths caused by a demon, and he soon uncovers a far greater conspiracy involving a takeover of the city by evil forces. We have to admit that this one is certainly not the best game in the series, but it is still an impressive effort. It gives you the same creeping sensation that you are used to from Alone in the Dark games, and the sinister plot adds to the chilling effect. However, the gameplay takes a hit due to some technical shortcomings, and this is what stops the game from reaching its full potential. The game comes with an intriguing inventory, and some weapons in your arsenal are fun to use. The puzzles are interesting, and the combat sequences will keep you entertained. In short, this is still an ambitious game that will keep things going despite some visual inconsistencies and technical glitches. Glass Rose, 2004. You are a reporter stuck inside a creepy Japanese mansion, And just as you explore the mansion with your friend, some supernatural force takes you back in time to the year 1929. Suddenly, the mansion, which was in ruins, is now in all its glory, and the reporter has to find a way to return back to his own time. During his stay in the past, he has to explore the mansion looking for clues to return, and he also has to interact with the people living there. The only advantage that the reporter has is his ability to look into a person's mind while talking with them. He uses this skill to investigate some murders, and the plot thickens as the gameplay moves ahead. Do you value a complex mystery with shades of terror? In that case, this game will be right up your alley, because Glass Rose was an unexpected success story coming from an unknown studio called Sing. The plot is one of the greatest assets of the game, and we are in love with the amazing set designs that make the game visually appealing. The only major issue is the frustrating game mechanics, and one must keep a track of several characters to understand the narrative better. The graphics quality is undeniably impressive, and we loved the obscure handling of the premise. There is a time limit for each chapter, and this can sometimes push you over into panic zone. Play this one with a calm head, and it is bound to be a rewarding experience. Kuon, 2004. This survival horror game was the pride of PS2, and it was developed by From Software. The story takes place in a mansion in Japan, and there are a couple of mulberry trees that birth silkworms capable of weaving a cocoon around the dead that can resurrect them. However, this resurrection can only be sustained if other living beings are merged, and their grudges are absorbed. If the merging is done 9 times, the Kuon ritual is completed, and a new being is created, which will become the new mulberry. 2 young women come to this mansion to explore the causes behind the disappearance of its inhabitants, and it soon transpires into a sordid tale of treachery and evil magic. The narrative is split into 3 parts, and the makers resorted to one of the tried and tested horror staples, haunted mansions. Make no mistake, this game is no child's play, and there are several violent moments, and the fear factor is extremely high. Be prepared for some disturbing imagery, and the drama keeps changing colors. The delayed combat makes things difficult when you are faced against one of the monstrosities in the mansion, and it might take around 10 hours to finish the game. The visual effects, attention to the period costume, and the realistic violence make this a wholesome experience that you cannot miss out on. Rule of Rose, 2006. His is yet another survival horror game that slipped beneath the radar of several gamers. Rule of Rose was developed by Punchline, and the gameplay is about a 19-year-old woman, Jennifer, who finds herself trapped in a strange world. The societal hierarchy is quite unusual here, and Jennifer gets caught in all of this after her weird interaction with a boy in a bus. She finds an abandoned orphanage, and she is the lowest member in the strange society, where young girls make her work for them. The game is all about her escape attempt. The game did come with some controversies because of some rumors surrounding the gameplay. However, you will be amazed by the long quest, where you have to guide Jennifer through a maze of mysteries. A little while into the game, you will be assisted by a dog, and this comes in quite handy. You need some good strategies to get to this best possible ending, and you must know when to use your weapons. However, all good things aside, there are a few things seriously wrong with the combat system. It is still a compelling adult-oriented mystery, and the subject matter is unique enough to try out. Blood Will Tell, 2004. This game was released by Sega, and it was a shocking entry into the world of gaming as an adaptation of a violent manga series, Dororo. The protagonist had parts of his body stolen, and his prosthetic replacements keep him going. He learns that the stolen body parts have been used to create a human, and he can get his stolen body part back if he killed those responsible for stealing the parts. He could also have his way if he killed their twisted creation. He is joined by a thief named Dororo, and together they go on a quest that puts them up against ancient Japanese demons and other monstrosities. It is tragic how underrated this brilliant game has been over time. The narrative starts off slow, but once it picks up pace, it becomes way too engaging. The graphics are above average, but the game is not about looking stunning. You get to play as a character who has a cannon for his leg, and a machine gun and swords for his arms, and we don't know what could be cooler. There are plenty of boss battles, which will challenge your skills, and as you keep getting back new body parts, you will discover new abilities. For us, the concept itself is worth playing the game, and Blood Will Tell will pleasantly surprise those who never knew about it. Haunting Ground, 2005. This game was developed and published by Capcom, and the story follows the exploits of a young woman named Fiona Belly. After she gets into a car accident, she wakes up in the dungeon of a castle, and luckily for her, she finds a canine friend in a white shepherd named Huey. She starts exploring the castle to figure out an escape route, and discovers more about the twisted inhabitants and the secrets of the castle. She must hide from the hostile enemies, utilize her dog cleverly, and find her way out of the building. The creepy atmosphere of the game is addictive and will keep you hooked on for more. There are some grisly action-packed moments, and the tense narrative keeps you on the edge of your seat. You are blessed with a neat teammate in the form of a dog, but you still have to stay clear of the deadly stalkers in the castle. The landscape is riddled with traps, and the graphics are stunning, highlighting the details with great care. The voice acting is decent as well, and the alternate endings are fun to explore by behaving differently with Huey. This game is definitely worth a look, and horror fans will surely grow to love this one. The PS2 era was indeed gifted by some remarkable games, and the unique quality of all the games that we explored is that they can be enjoyed even today. Do let us know in the comments below which are some of your favorites from this era. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one, and be safe. Thanks, everyone.
Ha 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 ha!